This story is not just about ice. This is not just about a remote island in the Arctic. It's about power, it's about military dominance, it's about energy control, and it's about a silent geopolitical battle unfolding at the top of the world. Because Greenland, a territory most people barely think about, it has suddenly become one of the most congested strategic locations on the planet Earth. And now its Prime Minister, he has delivered a message that is shaking Washington, unsettling NATO, and inviting reactions from Moscow. Greenland is not for sale, the statement that sparked global shockwaves. Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederick, he has issued a firm and emotional declaration, by the way. Greenland cannot be bought. Greenland cannot be sold. Greenland will decide its own future. This statement, it was not random. It came as the United States once again increased its strategic focus on Greenland, a place Washington views as vital for Arctic security and global military positioning. Well, the message was simple yet powerful. Greenland does not want to become a pawn in a superpowered chess match. But you know why Greenland matters so much than before? To understand this tension, you need to understand the geography here. Greenland sits between North America, Europe, and Russia. Now that makes it a perfect military observation post. From missile warning system to naval monitoring to security tracking and satellite tracking, Greenland is a strategic goldmine. But that's not all. Underneath that icy surface lies massive untapped resources, be it rare earth minerals essential for modern technology, be it oil and gas reserves, be it new shipping routes opening due to melting Arctic ice. In simple words, Greenland is no longer just frozen land. It is becoming a gateway to future global power. America's long interest in Greenland, the world knows about it. The US has been interested in Greenland for decades. It already operates the Pacific Space Base, formerly Thule Air Base, one of the America's most crucial missile detection and space surveillance facilities. But tensions rose dramatically when US President Donald Trump publicly floated the idea of purchasing Greenland. Well, the idea, it shocked Denmark, angered Greenland, and it triggered a diplomatic storm. Although Trump later backed off from aggressive language, concerns never fully disappeared. And now, as Washington pushes deeper strategic engagement, Greenland fears long-term political and military influence. Then comes the emergency talk that is just beginning. Trilateral discussions between Greenland, Denmark, and the US, they have now begun. The goal is to manage cooperation while addressing Greenland's concerns over sovereignty. But you know what? Officials in Greenland, they remain extra cautious. They worry that economic partnership and military cooperation, they could slowly turn into long-term strategic control. And for Greenland, which has gradually pushed towards greater autonomy from Denmark, this fear is deeply sensitive. Though Denmark is quite dilemma. Denmark technically governs Greenland as part of its kingdom, but Greenland enjoys broad self-rule and its population strongly supports the expansion independence. Greenland now faces a very difficult balancing act. On one hand, it wants to maintain strong NATO and US alliances. On the other hand, it must respect Greenland's political identity and local public opinion. Now, this tension is quietly testing unity within the Western alliance. And then enters Russia. Yes, just as Western tension grew, Russia stepped in with a sharp counter message. Senior Russian security official Dmitry Medvedev dismissed Western warning about Russian or Chinese Arctic ambition. He described them as fabricated horror stories. In fact, according to Moscow, Western nations exaggerated threats from Russia and China to justify expanding their own military footprints in the Arctic. Now, this narrative, it's not really accidental. Russia has heavily militarized its Arctic coastline, built new bases, and expanded naval patrols in the region. And it wants to challenge Western influence wherever possible. Well, China is not silent either. China may not geographically border with Greenland here, but Beijing calls itself near Arctic state. And China is investing billions into Arctic shipping, mines, research programs. Melting polar ice is opening new trade routes, potentially shortening the shipping distances between Asia and Europe. Now, that could transform the global commerce, and China wants to be ready when that transformation happens. So, in the end, the Arctic is becoming the new military frontier. For decades, the Arctic was considered a peaceful, isolated zone. Not anymore. Today, multiple nations are expanding military presence in the region. Russia is building airfields and missile systems. NATO countries are increasing Arctic patrol exercises, and the US is upgrading surveillance and defense infrastructure. Greenland sits right at the center of this growing competition, which means its political decisions they carry global consequences.